Okay, so one of the special products you guys learned before was called dots. And what did dots stand for?
Difference of two squares.
Difference of two squares. Perfect. So we are actually going to do factoring of perfect cubes. So here's what it looks like.
Bless you.
When A is a cube and B is a cube and there's a subtraction sign, it's a pattern. You have to memorize the pattern. Just like for dots, you have to memorize the pattern. So here's the pattern. It's a binomial, A minus B, times the trinomial, A squared plus AB plus B squared. Now let's look at this one down here. So that's when it's a minus sign. When it's a plus sign, it's the same formula. Binomial, A plus B, and then A squared minus AB plus B squared. However, this is where this acronym SOAP comes in. So, what does it say on your little paper for S? Same. That means it's the same sign as the original. So look at the original. Look at the original. Look at the original. Look at the original. Okay. O. What does it say on yours? Opposite. So that means the next sign is the opposite sign of the original. Last one is AP. What does that stand for? Always positive. The last term of both of these, always positive. Okay? So, it works for both. We're going to do lots of practice on it. Hopefully you guys can memorize it after today. So here's one example. We have x cubed minus 125. Okay, so I'm going to write out, it should be a binomial and a trinomial. And whatever order you want to do this in, this is fine. I'm going to start with the signs. So what sign should this first one be?
Minus.
Subtraction. What should the next sign be? Positive. And what should the last sign be? Positive. So, same, opposite, always positive. Okay, so what would the first term be here? What is A if I were to do the cube root of x cubed? Oh, yes, A is 1 for the coefficient. I'm talking about for x cubed. X. 125, what's the cube root of 125? 5. Okay, what's here, if you look at your SOAP, it's A squared. So it's the first term here, squared, which is x squared. Good. The last one is B squared. So 5 times 5 is 25. And the middle term is A and B. So that just means A and B, which is these, which would be 5x. Okay, here's another one. 16x to the 5th plus 54x squared. If you remember from the review video, what's the very, very first step in factoring? Very first step. Factor out the
Greatest common factor.
greatest common factor. Good. So what is the greatest common factor in each of these? X squared. And what about the coefficients? Not 6,
9.
not 4, not 9,
8.
not 8,
16.
not 16. Let's try it a little bit smaller. 2.
Bro. Good job, Barry. Why'd you say that?
Okay, when I divide out the greatest common factor, what's left here? 8. X cubed plus 27. Good. Okay, but we're not done. We have to factor this all the way. We look at this, and you have to think, is this a cube, and is this a cube?
Yeah.
It is. So, I bring down the 2x squared. This is a cube and this is a cube. Okay, let's do it, the signs first. What's my first sign? Positive. Same. Always opposite. What's the next one? Minus. And the last one's always? Positive. Okay. What is the cube root of 8? 2. What's the cube root of x cubed?
X.
X. So this is 2x. What's the cube root of 27? 3. Okay. Now, we take this first term and we're going to square it. 2x times 2x. Last term, we take this again and we square it. 3 times 3. Now we're going to take these two terms and we're going to squeeze them together, but we're not doubling it like we have before in the past. We're just going to squeeze them together, which means multiply them. So 2x times 3? 6x. You use grouping for factoring when there is 4 or more terms. Okay, here's the first one. Z cubed plus 5z minus 4z minus 20. Okay, what's the very first thing in factoring? First thing we look for every single time. Greatest common factor.
Wait.
Is there a greatest common factor in these?
Is it 5z squared or 5z?
No. 5z squared. Thank you. No greatest common factor. Okay, is it a binomial or a trinomial? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's not. Okay, it's a polynomial. There's 4 terms. So automatically you want to do grouping. So I'm going to group these two together. I'm going to write it again. Now, I'm going to group these two together, but because it's a negative, the 4z becomes positive, and the negative 20 becomes positive. Okay, now we start factoring all over again. Greatest common factor. What's the greatest common factor in just these two terms? Z squared. What is the greatest common factor in these two terms? 4. What do you see that's similar in these two terms?
5. Z5.
Z plus 5. So now I'm going to factor out the z plus 5. And you're going to leave what's left, which is z squared minus 4. But wait. We're not done. You call the next 15 minutes. What do you recognize this problem?
Dots.
Dots. Z plus 5, double bubble, plus minus, Z2, Z2. Fully factored form. Okay. Factoring is crazy, you guys. If you don't